Right, run away.
Okay, brilliant. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. As Tom said, just a quick bit of housekeeping. We're going to record the webinar for those that can't attend. We actually set up the webinar when it was somewhat quieter, and as of this week, it's certainly got a lot busier. So unfortunately, some few people can't make it now. But if there is any objections or any issues, just let me know, drop me a message. I think most of you have got my email address and that now, but I'll give it out at the end. Okay, so let's get going. So at Spicerhaart, we talk a lot about FLINK in our marketing, and today we wanted to give you an overview of what FLINK is, show you where it's worked well for us and for the developments for housing associations, and also to show where it's helped to achieve really good results even in these challenging times at the moment. But let's just give a quick introduction. So my name is Kim French, I'm the Marketing Manager for Spicerhaart Land and New Homes, and presenting with me today is Thomas Hughes, who's our Head of Digital Media. We also have Tim Wardley on the call, who is our Managing Director for Land and New Homes. And we have Tom Bateson, who's our New Homes Director, and Claire Druitt, who's our Regional Director. As you can see, Spicerhaart Group incorporates a large number of estate agency brands. It's the largest independent principal and estate agency group in the UK. We provide land and new homes expertise for a number of brands from strategically situated regional offices and branches. We offer dedicated advice, industry, MI, guidance to developers, house builders, housing associations, receivers and banks. And our estate agency offices, we have over 180 branches now, well over 2,000 staff, and they're all prominent along high street locations throughout England and Wales. Our biggest aim is to provide our clients with accurate, up-to-date, up-to-the-minute advice backed by the expertise and relevant local market information. We have a marketing proposition throughout the whole of the UK through our branches. We also have a dedicated land team who can help provide you with any raw material and any expertise you may need for your next project. For today, we're going through one part of our marketing that we offer, which is FLINK. And so we're just going to give you an overview of what FLINK is, how we're using it in our land and new homes marketing. We're going to go over some case studies and their results, and then there is a Q&A session for you if you want to ask any questions at the end, or do feel free to speak up during. So if I just hand over to Tom to get us started.
Sure. So I'll give you a high-level overview of FLINK, and then I think that the easiest thing to do is to try and root your understanding, and then pass you over to Kim, who can give you some really good case studies to bring that to life for you in customers that we've had that kind of are going to be facing similar challenges to what you're facing. So just to anchor your thinking before we kind of get into it, FLINK's a social media marketing tool. Is the easiest way to explain what it is. But the key thing for me is really, what does it do? So your ability to sell property is clearly related to your ability to create a demand for that property. And I know that as developers, obviously, you need to try and sell properties as quickly as physically possible to enable you to move on to the next phase or move on to your next development entirely. And you're obviously looking to release that capital you've invested. With FLINK, it really does help us to build up that demand. And I'll go through shortly with you kind of how it goes about that. But I just want to root your thinking in. This is a tool that works alongside your other marketing. So the marketing we do in terms of email, the marketing we do on Rightmove, and our kind of all-encompassing approach. This works alongside it to help build up an unparalleled demand to help you to shift your units either slightly quicker or for a better price. And what we saw 19 versus 18, that we were selling houses a third quicker in 19 in a more challenging market than what we were selling in 18. So I think that really is all about how we use not just FLINK, but all of our marketing to build up that competition, and FLINK's an important part of that. Kim, do you want to go on to the next slide? that move? Oh, there we go. So, so what FLINK does is effectively, this is the simplest way I can kind of explain this. It creates a number of ads. So there's a number of different things that are going to appeal to different people about your potential development or a specific unit type or a style of property you've got. So we would create multiple ads for that. So a good example would be a 2-bedroom terrace property might be applicable to a potentially investor, a first-time buyer or a downsizer. We would create multiple adverts to appeal to those different audiences. Based on the data that we've collected from the thousands of campaigns that we've run, so we run a campaign for every single resale property we list, and we list around 30,000 of those a year, combined then with a hell of a lot that we do for the new home side. We do a lot of multiple hit campaigns, so there's knocking sort of 40,000 campaigns that we do a year. We're using all of that data together, combined with all the other data that we are collecting as a business, and we are targeting people that we believe to be relevant to that property or that type. We then share that across social media, so Facebook Messenger, Instagram, and the Google Display Network. So you know, like if you're on a news site, for example, you might see a banner ad that we would appear there as well. And then once you're live, it's adjusting continually to put the most successful ads you have created in front of the most relevant people. So it's an efficient way to spend your advertising budget, but we offer this as part of our service fee. Kim, do you want to go on to the next slide?
Yeah.
So we talk about different types of buyers that FLINK accesses, and I think if I go through these one by one, it should give you a decent understanding of what we're talking about here. So the active buyer is that person that looks on a portal all the time. Those people are great and obviously contribute a hell of a lot to selling your developments. But you'll find that what people tend to do is that Rightmove, Zoopla, whatever portal you're choosing to use, acts to the consumer as a filter. So you say, I want a 3-bedroom house for up to this much money within a 5-mile radius of X. And that's what you end up with, is this kind of tight zone. Well, actually, if you're a 3-bedroom house, 10 grand under that budget, but you're 5.2 miles away from that radius zone, that person never sees it. And you get people that are on portals every day, just refreshing the whole time, and they're never going to see your development. And because of what they're doing with their digital activity online, FLINK can help you find those active buyers that you can't just get by relying on things like Rightmove. In terms of the local area buyer is the one that kind of drives past your development, knows what it is, just simply because, you know, developers typically are pretty good at hoardings, flags, everybody kind of locally seeing it. You then got the out of area buyer, which can be more tricky for you guys to tap into, potentially not having databases in different areas, which we'll come on to in a moment. And then the last concept is this passive buyer. So there are individuals that could be local or out of area that are not currently considering moving, but at the point of seeing the property that they know they would love triggers them into taking that action. And we've got plenty of case studies, you know, throughout the business. Talk to our people, and they'll tell you of stories where they've effectively found someone who says, I wasn't even looking to move. I saw this thing come up on my Facebook feed, and I just thought, you know what, it's in my price range. I love it. I've got to have it. And then they start that process. And when we did a survey, it was actually back in 2017 when we launched this. 2/3 of people said, you know, if we put your ideal next move in front of you, would you make that move? 2/3 of people said, yeah, you know, we would. So it's a fair sized chunk of the market that without this sort of approach, you're not going to tap into. Go on to the next slide, Kim. Is there an image that goes with that? Oh, there is. So there's a little bit more about the out of area buyer. So what there's an old 2014 now, but I think that the sentiment still stands, is that people are more willing to travel further afield for a new build property than what they would be for a resale property. I think when you combine that with the effects that we're going to see from COVID-19, which is you probably don't need to work, you probably don't need to live quite so near work anymore. I think the flexibility people are going to have with movement of distances is going to increase. and therefore your challenge is now not only going to be to sell to those people in your local community, but to go further afield. And what we can do with FLINK is, between us, we will come up with a marketing strategy for your development. And we'll do things like, our head office is based in Colchester. That's where I live. Average house price here is 300,000 quid. If you go 10 minutes on the train down the road towards London in Chelmsford, the average house price is about 10% more, about £330,000. So what you can do is you can target people in Chelmsford with your development in Colchester, and you can say, do you know, currently you're stuck in your 2-bedroom flat, not able to take the next step into your 3-bedroom semi-detached house in Chelmsford, but you could take that step in Colchester because they're starting from that higher base, and it's only an extra 10 minutes on the train to get into London. So that is the sort of targeting that we go through with you to try and work out how do we get to those relevant out of area people to help build up that competition in the market and get your development gone that little bit quicker. And Kim, do you want to go to the last one from me? We'd just like to give an overview of what, other agents do talk about social advertising, when you go to engage with other agents on new homes. And I just want to give a slight difference between what we've done here with FLINK, our product, compared to what other agents do their best with in terms of just advertising on Facebook. So we produce multiple ads for that one property compared to one property, one ad. It goes out across everything. We know we're targeting the right people because, as Kim will show you in a second, of the results combined with the volume of data that we collect and push through this machine. We're using the right message predominantly because we're using more messages. We listen to you, we use more messages, we understand the target audience, and we try to deliver that right message. It adjusts in real time, as opposed to, you put out a Facebook advert that you could set up yourself with a credit card. You've got to go back in regularly to change it, whereas this is adjusting in real time automatically without any human intervention whatsoever. And then we do some pretty nice reporting for you just to give you that feedback on, this is the demand we've created, this is the feedback we're getting. We quite often get people that are quite surprised by the demographics that are engaging with their site. And then we can advise on other things like print marketing. So we've had instances where a lot of the older generation are really engaging with a site that you maybe wouldn't expect. So we've also got a print warehouse, and we will recommend that we print leaflets to put through doors in those areas as well, because obviously whilst some of the older generation are into Facebook, and it's actually more than what people would think, some of them aren't, and therefore it's a good way to kind of get that through. So again, just to push your thinking back into where this lives, it's all about creating that high demand to enable you to move your development more quickly and for the right price. The more demand you create, go on to the next phase, you can be confident to price it higher because you've got that bank of buyers in the bank from your first wave of activity.
Good question.
Yeah, sure.
Are you saying it adjusts the message? Is that what you're saying? It's adjusting the message itself, or the target?
So it adjusts the targeting. So of the 90 ads, so within the 90 ads, there's a multiple messages depending on what we would kind of agree with you within the volume of ads. We then say, right, imagine it's a horse race. So you start off with 90 horses, and that's a combination of the images and the text will be all multiplied up together. So you might have an image of a kitchen addressing a first-time buyer. That same image of the kitchen might also have another message attached to it addressing the downsizer, for example. All of these ad sets, these horses start the race, and then you're effectively spread betting. So you're putting your money into the ad sets that are working well, and you're taking your money out of the ad sets that aren't working so well. So the adjustment relates to the budget going behind each of the individual ad sets and the targeting that it is.
So you just set up a load of ad sets or individual ads at the beginning, is that what you're saying? I don't know, maybe a dozen or something, and then the system just chooses the ones that work the best?
Correct.
Over time, okay.
But what it will do is, what's best for you, so you might get a different ad to what I get and what Kim gets, for example, but it's kind of trying to weight that budget across the ad set. So by starting with quite a high proportion, you'll find that some of them drop away quite quickly. But then you end up with this kind of, if the campaign lasts a week or 10 days, getting towards the end of that campaign period, you've got a really strong set of ads running that you know are driving you the result that you want.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions at that point, or does everybody want to see some case studies from Kim?
Okay. Just give it a second. I think there's a slight delay when I click it and it shows. Okay, so starting off with some two housing association developments. So we have Rectory Park, which is a lovely selection of 1, 2 and 3 bedroom shared ownership apartments as part of Network Homes, and Zest, again, shared ownership apartments, and these were in Cricklewood. So they both offered stylish homes for people wanting to get onto the property ladder, but they had a strict criteria, and priority was going to be given to those living and working locally. So our messaging and our targeting criteria was quite easily set out for us right at the beginning. They both had a combination of FLINK campaigns, which then complemented email campaigns going to our applicant databases. So we were targeting people that had already signed up and said that they were looking for a property, but we were also targeting those buyers who maybe hadn't even thought about moving yet, perhaps thought they couldn't afford it yet, but that were in that local area. And our targeting was restricted to those areas that was set out for us by Network Homes. Oops, sorry, it's gone on 1 too many. So you can see for Rectory Park, we had some single image ads, we had some carousels, we had some different carousels for Zest as well. Different imagery, different messaging, and these were the results shown in the funnels were for one single campaign for that development. So for Rectory Park, we got a total of 80 leads, and for Zest, we got a total of 34 leads, which are then passed on to our colleagues that will then have those leads to follow up on. So they were actually through lead generation campaigns. People actually entered in their details, let us know whether they wanted to request more information, if they were interested in a brochure, if they wanted to request a viewing, or if they needed to speak to a mortgage advisor first to look at this property and find out if it was viable for them. If I move on. Hello?
So can I ask a quick question? So with the leads, do you keep a record of what the conversion rate is?
Sorry, did you ask, did I keep a record of what version it was?
Conversion rate.
Of the conversion.
So, yes, in terms of the people that we reach to, the leads that then come through to us.
Yes, so we've got 80 leads at Rectory Park. Do you know what the conversion rate was on the 80 leads?
Yes, because we'd follow up on those leads, and so we would then have who was able to be proceeded with and who wasn't.
Right. Okay.
Does that answer your question, Belinda, or not? Not quite.
Not quite. I just wondered from the 80 leads. I mean, because we generate quite a lot internally, and we get a lot of leads, but they don't always convert to an actual sale. And I just wondered whether you kept a record from your leads, how many of them actually converted to purchasers.
So Kim, that was how many of the leads that we get in, how many of them end up buying? So with Rectory Park, do you know how many units that was?
It was still on that. I think Courtney's on the call as well.
In total, it was 181 units, and we've sold 146. So
You're just on
181, 146. And do you know how many? Obviously, we're the only agents acting on that, right?
Yeah.
So and that's on the last phase now for Rectory.
We're on the last phase. The last phase we launched on the 18th of January, and we're already 34 sold.
Brilliant. That's what I was asking. That's yeah. Excellent results. Yeah. Thank you.
No worries.
We have. I mean, it's a very working with the customers, and then you have someone like Courtney who works very closely with Network Homes. the imagery that we get through and the clear messaging, it sets out the intention straight away. So someone to actually respond on Facebook to say, I need to be sent more information, is a very warm lead, as opposed to someone that received an email campaign that we then follow up on. So it works very well in just providing them with exactly what they were looking for, and they're in that area, and we pass that straight on. It has their contact details because they've provided them when they've clicked to send the lead to us. So we have an email address and a phone number that we can then follow up on. So it is very quick and instant, really. And so we can then respond to it quickly and achieve that next step with them. Obviously, one of the most important parts we have to do here is we have to make sure that they can proceed, that they are that they meet the criteria set out by the housing association.
I think it's really important to remember that FLINK is a big part of how we access the stuff on the periphery. So we have email, which is obviously very direct. We are big spenders on Rightmove, as you would expect by a company of our size, and we spend a lot of time analysing that performance. And in 2019, we had 36% more calls per branch per month than the national average agent. And a lot of that is because of the way that we approach our premium product. So when you work with us, you're working with us not only from, you've obviously got the sales team, but from a marketing perspective, you get the best there is on Rightmove. So our average leads per branch per month is 78.1 compared to 67.1 for the national average, plus all the additional calls, that 36% additional calls. You get FLINK, which is clearly providing a huge number of leads for that stuff that, like I say, is on the periphery because Rightmove acts as that filter. And then you get the benefit of our database, which is, look, we send emails to the relevant people we have in our database, but every branch has a strong number of applicants. And in pre-coronavirus times, we were comfortably registering 5,500 to 6,000 applicants a week. At the moment, it's a little bit more up and down than that, but I'm sure you can appreciate that. But it's coming back strong in recent weeks. So it's a big part of what we do to generate the result that Courtney just spoke to you about.
And the difference in the space of a week between people just looking, so the reach for our campaigns and the clicks were quite high, but the volume of leads over the last few weeks, as you can imagine, I was expecting quite a drop off, for example. But if I just move on to one of our other sites, the next case study, yes, it is Hazel Place. We expected a drop off in actual leads, but we were still marketing throughout the whole time that we've been going through this awful virus. But our leads for Hayfield Place, this campaign finished, I think it was about 3 weeks ago now, and in 1 week, so just 7 days of a campaign, we got 89 leads in. And for the other one for Bayside, this was actually now that we are able to do some safe viewings, we actually still have the a viewing event set up for Bayside and Weston-super-Mare, and we paused the campaign 3/4 of the way through the spend because we've filled up the whole day of viewings and we're having to open up a second day. These are people that have gone on to the ad and they've requested they want to come and view. They're happy with the content of the ad. They've spoken to us. We've explained how we're going to make sure that it's safe to do so. But even in tricky times like we're going through at the moment, these campaigns are performing well. Hayfield Place is a site that has got a lot going for it. It's stunning properties. They're in a fantastic location. Help to Buy is available. They're very high spec. Part exchange is available. There's from 2-bedroom to 5-bedroom. So there's an awful lot to offer people. However, it is also in a very rural area. So on a search, especially on Rightmove and that, it might not have been considered. They're in Silsoe, as in Bedfordshire. So, and in Rightmove, the way it kind of works is when you're a buyer, you're kind of put in a pen, and that's the only area that you're going to get those properties to come up for. Whereas if you'd seen that maybe just a little bit further afield, or a little bit more rural than you were thinking, but this ticks all your boxes, then you would then inquire for this property, or inquire to view the different properties to see what meets your requirements. But this wasn't straight away a success. I mean, this was, we've done a few campaigns for Hayfield Place, and we were averaging sort of 20 leads per campaign. But we've taken those learnings, we've taken who we are, the target audience that are responding to our ads, and the sort of messagings that are responding. We're tweaking it all the time, and then obviously the learnings that FLINK's taken on board. And then in this campaign for 7 days, we've reached 89 leads, which was fantastic. And in a time that things were very uncertain, we were absolutely delighted with that. And we've been using FLINK for some time now, so we've learned a lot along the way. I'd even go as far as to say as we're probably quite ahead of agents using similar tools, because we've been using it for quite some time. We've got a lot of learnings from it and a lot of data from it. And yeah, just finishing up on Bayside again, Weston-super-Mare, lovely apartments. As you can see, there was some promotion of the event, but there was also the FLINK ads went across onto Instagram as well, and we are completely full for the first day of the viewing, and we've had to open up the second day. So just touching a little bit on the multivariance of the ads, so targeting different audiences whilst it's learning all the time, so it's optimizing the right ad, the right message for the right target audience. We still look at targeting specific requirements, so if people we know for a fact we need to really push harder on the first time buyers, downsizers, commuters that are living in a certain area, which is obviously very useful for housing associations that have that stricter criteria. And it provides worthwhile reports so that we learn and we take our learnings and continue to optimise, as well as FLINK optimising as well. The location targeting is very important, and can be everything really. So for example, we could target if you had competitor sites nearby and you wanted to target people turning up for viewings there, if we can do location targeting. Another example we've got for Harborne here, which is Crockett's Lane. We actually targeted hospitals, medical centres, where we could get doctors, nurses, things like that, because there was a brand new super metropolitan hospital that is going to be literally a 5-minute walk from this site. So we were able to look at certain criteria that we wanted to appeal to and target that way as well.
We've also done things like shopping centres, and you map the
Yes.
budget to when the shopping centres are open and busy.
Yeah.
And football stadiums, all sorts of stuff
cricket
like that.
fixtures, yeah. I think we even did the Notting Hill Carnival for one as well. So yeah, just one day of marketing, but it was going to reach a lot of people that maybe wouldn't have considered travelling before. Okay, so just one other example here. So this is Lime Tree Place, which is in Witham, in Essex. We've run a lot of different ads for this site. We had, when it was off plan, when it was starting to be built, when it was phase 1, we had launch events. We also had a relaunch event when there was a bit of a change going on within the company that were promoting it. We also had a Help to Buy event, so we needed to bring more first-time buyers in to look around to see how affordable and that it was, but a lot of them didn't actually, in speaking and getting their feedback, they didn't actually understand a lot about Help to Buy, so we ran a Help to Buy event actually at the site, so they could come and speak to mortgage advisors, but also look at what it could mean for an apartment in this development. So we were looking for the different messaging there, so we had first-time buyers targeting very heavily on Help to Buy, but we were also looking for that commuter as well, so maybe people that were still living at home, maybe still living with parents, but travelled to work, maybe didn't realise that there was affordable apartments coming up in somewhere like Witham, which has a very good train station, as you can see from the local network. For the rail, it has could reach several towns, so it's really good for commuting. Now, what we did here is because we were able to target specific locations, we actually targeted the train stations with different journey times of how quick it would be to get to their apartment in Lime Tree Place and how far away it was from London. And we then looked at the branches that were close to those train lines, and those branches that had applicants registered to them. We were then able to send out an email campaign with that mirrored our social media campaign, our FLINK campaign, that also gave the journey times. So people that possibly wouldn't have considered or didn't realise that actually living in Witham, you were very close to lots of other towns and it wasn't far away on the train. And it just gave another angled and much bigger markets to market to. So we probably wouldn't have gone so far afield, but we looked at the journey times and it was perfectly feasible for this site, especially for first-time buyers looking to move out and having Help to Buy available. So it does really widen who you could target and who it would appeal to. And with that real-time reporting and the looking at what's been a success and what hasn't, we were able then to identify a case of working well in Chelmsford, but less so further up in Ipswich, because probably the journey time's a bit too much. So then we were able to make decisions on where we put the next campaign. And this is just a very small snapshot of the sort of reporting that we get in. So if you look at the actual difference in the first two graphs, which is the impressions, and then the second two graphs are the actual clicks. So it's the people that actually took action on the ad. So we might have received a lot of interest or impressions in that on the desktop, but the clicks were mobile based. And then if you look at the age ranges, it's fairly similar. But you can see the age range of people that actually took action. It's not just the people that looked at the ad, it's the people that took action. So we're able to optimize this for our next campaign to provide not just leads, but quality leads, those that do go on to inquire further and then move on to that sale, the all important sale.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
How tight can you target areas? Could you, for example, target sort of high value estates for argument's sake, you know, road with a certain value of houses in it, for example?
Yes, if you had a road, for example, and you've got that postcode,
you can target the postcodes.
Yes, I believe it. Does it
you
go
can target an
as,
exact postcode, I think, down to like a CO1 level.
It's the second.
And then I think you can do a minimum of a 1 mile radius.
And can you identify? So suppose, for example, if we wanted to target everybody whose a house is worth more than 500,000 or whatever it is in an area, can you do that?
Yeah, there's certain things you can do with net worth. So you can make some stipulations around kind of are they a higher net worth individual? The thing that will help is the adjustment in the ad targeting. So obviously the value comes from the relevance. So if you're advertising a property that's at a higher end of the market and people that are taking action, because everything is based off of who takes action, whilst people might click to be nosy, you're unlikely to make an inquiry if you know, if I've got 300 grand and the house is 500 grand, that it seems little point in me actually making an inquiry, whilst I might have a look around, see how nice it is. Because we base our adjustment based on who's taking action, as soon as we've got some action, then you will continually adjust to find the right high net worth individuals, but you can put in a bias, if you like, to say, I'd like to reach more well-off people or people that can afford it effectively. You can put that bias in to start with to give it a bit of a head start and point it in the right direction. Okay,
great, thank you.
Okay. Oh, that actually leads on nicely to the questions in that anyway. So has anybody else got anything that they'd like to ask about any of the presentation?
Kim, sorry, I can't seem to turn my camera on, which is probably benefit to everybody else. The scheme we had in Derby was interesting, where we targeted the football match that's going on just up the road. So that sort of in my own mind was a really sort of clever idea, where you can use this to literally hover over either your competitor sites or indeed sort of big events. So if you were selling, so the gentleman who mentioned the higher value properties, I'm assuming you could just hover over sort of the next competitor's site up the road to actually get their buyers. Would that be correct?
Yes, so we do quite that on a few sites. Actually, we did that for the Derby development as well. So there was actually quite a lot of competition around that development, even though they're sort of further afield. Whereas this development that we're working on is really in the centre of Derby. There are people that would consider moving further out. So, and there were quite a number of those sites. So we did target those developments, and that's people. That's sort of on your location targeting. So people arrive and maybe view the show home and that, and then would receive an ad, a FLINK ad from.
That's what you can do is you can target, Kim, can't you? People that either live in an area or travel to an area or both. Yeah. So when you do a competitor site, you say, right, anybody that's traveling to this area, I'd like to target them, because you're making the assumption that they are going to view that new site. Yeah. And that's kind of what you're hedging your bets on, and they got some really good results in Derby, because obviously those people are in buying mode but potentially haven't considered your development.
Yes, and what we had there is, depending on where we were targeting, I mean, the possibilities were endless, really. So if we were looking at the apartments in Derby, you had things like the train stations, football matches, the shopping centre. But then when we were looking at the homes that are coming up for sale, the 2-3 bedroom semi-detached terrace properties, and we're thinking young couples, families. So then we start targeting things like schools and colleges and things like that. So it's going after the buyer that you know is going to be interested in your development with the different messages. But then if you're targeting someone that's turning up to certain locations that may not have, maybe the awareness wasn't enough, they might not have heard of the development, or if they have heard, they might not have heard the information they need to take action. So it does really give us a lot of possibilities.
I think one of the key messages is we spend the time with you guys as the developers to work out what your challenge is and help you with that challenge. And you know, we've also used this before when people start getting a bit of stick because they're building houses where people don't want them to build houses. And we do things about, this is what we're investing in the local community and all that sort of stuff. So we're here to help you with your challenge. Your challenge might be to sell the new build really quickly. Your other challenge might be to avoid people posting nasty things through your letterbox. So that we just work with you on what the challenge is. We'll set up a full plan and deliver to that plan and report back on how it's gone and be adjusting that plan to meet whatever the challenge is. So it's we're really flexible in that way. Any other questions from anybody?
I'd like to ask about costings, Tom, if that's not a rude thing to say.
Costings, yeah.
No,
Tim, do you want to cover off costings and how you get hold of FLINK as a developer?
Well, I think, Geraldine, I think we sort of look at every site individually, really. We liked building the FLINK proposition as obviously part of that, because clearly it's an attraction to the developer, but it also helps us sell the houses quicker and we can get our commission quicker. But really, it really does depend on each development. So if it's a housing association site, obviously the percentage levels are going to be different, possibly to a higher value development site. How we like to do it is, if someone was interested in engaging with Spicerhaart, we would actually do a marketing report for them. We'd give the basic idea of where we think you should be looking for buyers or how we could best use our marketing, and then we'd actually quote a price on that for you to discuss with us. But obviously we do a lot of these, so it's no problem for us just to do that, and then the decision would be in your court, as they say. But we do see I think the thing for me on this whole FLINK thing, which is why I asked this to get set up, and it's useful that we're recording it, is that I think people's habits might genuinely change in terms of commuting. And I just think that the Silso development we've got such a massive response on what are quite high value properties for the area. And we're getting people from St Albans, Harpenden, right down the M1, right down into the M25 from one single FLINK campaign. And you literally get back, when you do the campaign, a list of people that have taken actual action on clicking a link and actually asking for a brochure or asking to go and view. So it's not sort of lost in the ether, it's genuine tangible results, which I think is the big difference between this and perhaps some of the other sort of hope campaigns that you see out there at the moment. We tangibly get an actual list of people back that are interested in at least talking further about the development.
Yeah, certainly the development that I'm specifically thinking of should be available hopefully early part of next year. So we'll start our campaign on that, I suppose, quite shortly. It's for assisted living. It's an over 55s block of apartments.
Yeah.
But we've got an added restriction of the local council having to qualify every buyer that we find.
Yeah.
So there could be some difficulties with that, but I can see that this could actually really support that sort of development.
I think an over 55s development can be more challenging, and I think this is where this sort of thing really comes into its own, in specifically targeting that sort of type of person in different locations. Because again, I think people that are looking to take that sort of opportunity will be probably located not only locally but also further afield, and it's just wider.
Yeah, coming back to where family are as well is the thing. I've done the over 55 developments, but I've just not done it with a council interference almost.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can see some benefits there for sure.
Yes.
We wouldn't, with something like that as well. I mean, obviously there is that market of the over 55s to target with something like FLINK, but we'd also, in the background, we can do other testing. So it might be that a child or of that couple that uses Facebook and Instagram, or that would pass it on to or show them. So it could be, do you want your family living nearer to you? Would they like this sort of site? So there are other possibilities rather than just targeting that group as well that could work.
And we do have a print warehouse as well.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
if you kind of learn a lot from the social aspect. So can you generate leads through targeting people's kids effectively and saying, do you want your mum and dad to live closer? Here's this over 55 plan. You can refer it on to them, and that's absolutely fine. If it does work, then we can do a leaflet drop in that area with a similar message. So we just kind of, we take each challenge as it comes, and there are restrictions like the one that Courtney's working on. There's restrictions on that, but we listened to the challenge, we cut our cloth accordingly, and we're working it out for them and getting the result. So we're pretty comfortable if it's over 55s and they have to have lived in the area for a certain number of years, whatever the restriction may be. You work out a way to find the people that are relevant.
Yeah, because there's no point in having campaigns with great numbers of leads is fantastic. We love that, but if none of them are the right buyer, then that's a waste of people's time and resource when you're trying to move on to the next part of your site.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Thanks.
Any other questions? I shall take that as a resounding no and stop the recording for now. And then unless there is anything else,